one of the people in the boardroom had this great quote. I'm not going to get it right. It's been a few weeks since I read the book, but it came down to the concept of if you have to eat shit, don't nibble. Hello, business friends, and welcome to another podcast with one of your hosts, Steve.
And Craig.
Today, we're going to be talking about one of the best business books of all time. So Google says, The Hard Thing About Hard Things by Ben Horowitz. It's an oldie, but a goodie, and so it's worth revisiting.
And you might know Ben Horowitz, who's more famous for being a venture capitalist nowadays with Mark Andreessen, Andreessen Horowitz. But he actually started as a product manager and engineer at Netscape and AOL. After that, he co-founded LoudCloud, which is kind of like a cloud provider from today. Then it went public around March 2001, as you might recall, was during the dot-com crash. Not a great time to launch a software or a tech company. And then he had to eventually switch to a software-based company where they would just service cloud computers, and almost went bankrupt several times. Had a whole bunch of stress, thought he was almost going to die, and then eventually would sell to Hewlett-Packard for an amount in the billions that we'll get to later on in the story. But really here, what we want to do is we want to focus on the concepts you can take away, because, I mean, anyone can just recreate the story and say what they liked about it, but we want to get through the concepts that you can take away as a business leader and what you can apply to your business today, and then just also a couple funny anecdotes. And stick around to the end. We're going to talk about some interesting things that we've seen in the marketplace. Steve, what were some of the concepts or interesting stories that you liked in the book?
Well, but we're not even going to do this chronologically. This is definitely not going to be a summary of the book. So I'm going to jump around. One of my favorite anecdotes stories was after they went public, the company missing some of their financial targets right off the bat, having a board meeting, what they're going to do, how they can signal to the market that they're going to miss their earnings and potentially miss them for a long time. One of the people in the boardroom had this great quote. I'm not going to get it right. It's been a few weeks since I read the book, but it came down to the concept of if you have to eat shit, don't nibble. And they were just going to take all the pain at once, tell the investors, tell the market they were going to miss their earnings by a lot and just get demolished in the stock market. Yeah, just a great quote and words to live by. I mean, if you are facing a bad situation, it's happened to me at work many times. Don't try and sugarcoat it. Don't take the soft landing. Just be upfront and take all that pain at once. Loved it. Great anecdote.
Great anecdote. And it kind of reminds me of Mark Andreessen's quote at one point in the book where he says, "Oh, don't worry, Ben, the darkest days are right before it goes black," which is pretty bleak. The other thing I think that really focused on was embrace the struggle. It was basically grit, I think, that got him through it. And he was very much, you just have to work through these problems. And one key highlight and concept that I took away was there's not a right answer. You just have to find the best answer at that point in time. And it kind of reminds me right now of like AI, where there's all this uncertainty. No one knows where it's going. So it's like you can't make no decision. Just try to get into the right direction.
That was like one of my favorite things about the whole book in general. There never really was the perfect happy ending. There's no lessons learned where it was like, if you're in this situation, do X, Y, Z, and everything's going to come out rosy. There was no easy answers. Everything that they went through was hard.
Yeah.
And it brings me to another one when they were, I'm probably going to misstate some of this, but when they were separating the businesses, they decided to go in one direction. They had the software that they knew was going to be the future. They had this hardware business, and they had to split it out. And they got some investors, and it was such a proud moment to save the company. And Ben Horowitz was super excited. And then one of the advisors was like, everyone else is going to go to New York to make this announcement, and you're going to stay behind at headquarters and let everyone know if they're coming with the new company, if they're going with the old company, or if they're dusting off their resumes and they don't have a job. So even when it came to the peaks, the good things that happened, he was always brought back down to earth with like kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place and having to make some really tough decisions and not really get to enjoy it.
Is that when they transitioned from like LoudCloud to Opsware?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
and they got like, so I think like 150 people moved on with the company because they basically sold LoudCloud to a different company, EDS, and then 140 people they had to fire, and then the remaining few people were combined into kind of like the Opsware, which is like the SaaS company that moved forward. Um, the crazy part I think about that is and this is kind of a focus in the book too, is there's a difference between peacetime CEOs and wartime CEOs. And most management books, he says, are like peacetime CEOs where it's like, oh, culture, and this is what we're doing, and this is where we're heading. And he was a wartime CEO where like they could die at any day. And I think an interesting point was when he was looking and they were Loud Cloud and they were working on the cloud computing business. And then he realized he was looking at his competitors and he's like, this isn't actually a great business. The margins aren't great. Like, this is difficult. And so he looked internally and he's like, yeah, we need to change what we're going to do or we're going to go bankrupt. And he had a conversation with one of his advisors and they said, you know, like, what would you do if you went bankrupt? And he's like, well, I would buy the software from the company and then I would just use that software to service these cloud computing companies. And the guy was like, okay, is there any way we could do that without going bankrupt? And so he started this product team that was like going to look at this ops, what would become Opsware, the software side of the company. And some of these kids that were working for him were like, we can't do this. We can't have two product lines. And there's this great anecdote in the book where these two kids from Stanford sit him down for a 45-minute meeting and they go through all these slides and they're like, this is why we can't do two product lines. We have to focus. And Ben just sits there quiet the entire time, doesn't say anything. And then at the end, he just takes a breath and says, did I ask for this? And that to him was like, I'm a wartime CEO. I know everything that's going on and I'm making decisions. But yeah, brutal.
It's so opposite of a lot of the advice out there right now. Because you're right, he makes the point saying he was the person that knew everything about all aspects of the business. That was his job at the CEO. You organize the teams, you make the decisions, you have all the information to make those top hard choices when there are no easy choices, as it says in the book a few times. But a lot of the advice you hear now is about radical transparency and giving everybody all the information so everyone in the company knows everything at all times. And then his philosophy throughout the book was that you don't do that, that you just give people the information they need to do their job and they're kind of siloed to make the best decisions they can for what they're responsible for, but they don't necessarily have the bigger picture, which worked out for him. But you get a lot of advice and you see a lot of advice nowadays that is the exact opposite, which I thought was really interesting. And there's another thing on that when it comes to culture, and actually there was a few points that kind of counterbalanced each other throughout the book. I think there was one part talking to advisors, building a company. The best way to build a company is you take care of people, product, and then profits. I think it was that sequence. People was definitely first. Maybe it was profits, then product. I don't know. But it was definitely people first. But then later on, when you're talking about culture, that wasn't the first thing. And I think there's a passage in the book where he talks about how there's bankrupt companies littering the landscape because they focus on great culture. There are thousands of companies that have amazing culture that are now bankrupt. So it is a balance. Like, people matter, culture matters. But then at the same time, if you don't have a great product and if you're not driving towards profitability, then you can't take care of the people and the culture doesn't matter as much. So it is like, it's not necessarily a 1, 2, 3 priority. It's holistic.
Yeah. And his approach to people was interesting. Like, one of the things he said is you have to hire for strength, not safe. So he's like, ignore their weaknesses, look for the strength that they need in that position. And he brought in a whole bunch of people, like the head sales and everything, that people interviewed with him and they're like, oh my God, like, this can't go forward. And he was like, no, this is like the best salesman. That's what we need.
I love that part of the book.
It was so good. Yeah, it was fantastic. And then the other thing was he had this interesting approach where with people, one of the things he said to avoid was management debt. So he's like, tech debt where you have all these software programs and then it's just layer and layer. And then management debt was kind of like management decisions that would kind of screw you over in the future. So imagine you have an employee, they're really important, but they're a squeaky wheel and they keep wanting a raise, and then you just give them a raise. But then now you just created a situation where everyone's going to be a squeaky wheel and is going to ask for a raise. So he's like, be very careful on the decisions that you make around people.
Yeah, the other example I think he had on that one was when people outgrow their jobs or there's not really a position, but they're really good people. They're good for the culture. You like having them around, so you promote them into a position that doesn't really do justice to the company. And then that again, it shines off to the rest of the organization where this person didn't necessarily perform. They weren't really doing anything. You put them in a role that they're not suited for and they're just kind of hanging around. And that's another form of the management debt that he talked about that just becomes dangerous long term for your culture and company.
And that was an interesting takeaway. I remember there was a part in the book where he said, okay, we needed someone new in this position because the person that was running whatever it was, the product or whatever, didn't have the experience for the size that the company was growing. I mean, they went from like 0 to 600 employees in like 16 months.
That's insane.
Insane. So what he did is he said, if you wanted to keep that person there, but actually put someone above them that had more experience, he's like, let them know that they're actually still really wanted at the company and that they want to grow with the company. And he said, actually, like you would give them a pay bump. So I found that like astonishing because usually you hear, oh, someone comes in above you, you don't have that experience. I'm sorry. But it's like, if you were in that situation, the CEO came to you and said, well, no, we really want you around. Here's a pay increase. We just need to bring in some talent because we're growing so fast. We've just never seen this. I thought that was pretty cool.
I think it's hard for a lot of people to swallow, like pride wise, ego wise, to be able to accept. Like everyone wants to think that they are the best person for the job. It takes a lot for you as a person to be in that company and just be like, you know what, you're right. I'm not up for the job. Bring in someone else and I'll just keep doing my part. That's to have those employees, if they are willing to accept that and stick around, then you should reward them. That's hard.
And I do want to bring it back to grit because I think that was the key message throughout the entire thing is, I mean, after they went and sold off Loud Cloud and they became Opsware and now they're just a SaaS company. The market's crashing. It's the dot-com bust. And their stock was worth so little that they had twice as much cash in their account than their market value was. It was like their market value of the entire company was like 60 million bucks. Oh no, sorry, they had 60 million in cash and their market value was like $30 million. So the market's basically saying you're just going to burn through all this and waste it. So there were like really, really like low lows at that time. And then there was a time when he had his head engineer and his head product person, and they were fighting. Like, oh, it's the product's going on. That's the engineer's fault. No, it's product's fault. And he looked at them and he's like, okay, we're doing Freaky Friday. It's like, you guys are switching jobs and you're stuck in the new job. And they're like, what the hell what are you talking about? And so they did that. They actually like switched jobs. And then they were like, oh yeah, I see the nuance in your group and the problems. So yeah, pretty intense stuff.
I would love to do that. Like once you get on your career and you're specializing, you just get so stuck in what you are doing. And it's really hard to see like all the day-to-day things that people in other parts of the business are doing. But to be able to like, I think they did it for months, if I recall in the
Yeah.
book, but like even just for like a week to be able to go into someone else's role and just be like, oh, like this is everything that happens. Like no idea. And a lot of times you just see the end result.
Yeah.
So it's easy from the outside to be like, why didn't you just do X, Y, Z when you don't see everything else that's happening?
And me and Steve also had way different reactions to this book. After reading this book, Steve was like, oh, I think I want to be CEO. This would be like fantastic. And I was like, oh my God, this sounds like horrendous. I think I would die from stress. And actually, Ben actually went to the hospital and he went to the doctor and he's like, I think I'm dying. And the doctor was like, no, you're just like, that's how stressed you are.
I think I'm just a glutton for punishment. You're reading it and it almost sounds like a horror novel. He does not play up anything that he does, makes it sound good or exciting, but there's just so many twists and turns and options for strategizing and making choices. I don't know. Those are just kind of things, solving problems that just excite me. I'm a sucker.
Steve is a sucker. Another takeaway I found which was interesting, was there was a time when they were trying to brainstorm and they were trying to figure out like the silver bullet. Like we're competing with all these people. Like how do we win? Um, and Ben just got up and he's like, guys, there's no easy answer. There's just lead bullets. Like, we're just going to have to do the hard stuff. We're going to have to call them one more customer. We're going to have to like get rid of one more bug. Like, there's no silver bullet, only lead bullets.
There's like, if you go deeper into that story, there's a few things about that that really interested me. One, they were at a moment where he knew that to like build the product and use that lead bullet was going to take a lot of time and hours, and they didn't have a lot of time. It was something like 6 months before the market needed something or they were running out of cash. And he was stressing himself. And then so he went to the team and gave them this big speech, and it weighed on him because he thought everyone was going to push back. But he gave him this big speech that was basically like, listen, for the next 6 months, we need to do this if this company is going to survive. I want everyone to go home to your loved ones and tell them that you are going to be working 7 days a week, 12 hours a day for the next 6 months, and I need everyone on
Oh, yeah.
board. And he felt guilty for asking. And then in that moment, everyone was just like excited, jazzed to do extra work, to like really lean in and save the company. Like everyone felt responsibility and was invigorated by this. And I think he tells the anecdotes about like someone later on went to him and was like, that was the best time of my working life because we all got close. We all banded together. We like all got down in the ditches and rolled up our sleeves and did this. I mean, it helps that it worked because if you put in all that effort and then fail, then like no one's looking back at that fondly. But they succeeded. They did what they wanted to do. They had this product. They went out and beat the market. So everyone could look back at that like this defining moment for the company that they got to play a hand in. And so he was holding on to that as his responsibility, but he shared it and was like, we need to do this together. And like everyone put their hands up. And I think this is going back to another one when they separated the companies and it was like 140, 160 people came with him. And I think he said like only 2 people left the company on their own terms from that day to when they sold for $1.6 billion 8 years later.
Yeah, yeah. It was like 2 people. He said, if you're going to be with me, stay with me. That first day or whatever. And 2 people decided to leave. And then it was 2 people from then till 2007 when they sold the company.
Which is incredible in a volatile market, and considering all the ups and downs that they went through that time, that people were just like, they were bought in. They were full all in.
Yeah, it was Navy SEALs of business time. It was cool. The sales process was interesting, I found, because they had a mentor who basically said, well, if you're in a dog race, you need a rabbit. So they would just bring in extra companies to try to like get more people competing for the company. And they would actually schedule the other companies at like very similar times and walk them through the hallways so that they would be passing each other in the hallways to the meetings about buying the company and the due diligence meetings. I thought that was like just salesmanship through and through.
Yeah, the gamesmanship was incredible there. I mean, it wasn't false. I mean, everyone was realistically interested. They weren't scamming or lying about anything, but making sure, putting all their cards on the table, making sure that everyone knew like that there was competition in the market and drive that urgency was pretty interesting. There's another thing you mentioned. I want to go back to it. When they were going to get delisted and they were having the problems, and then he talked about how they had all this cash. Their stock shouldn't have been rated so low. And this he's like, the market just needs to hear our story. Now, as someone who loves stories, as someone who's in marketing, I was like, ooh, tell me more how you did this. And they basically just scheduled an interview with one influential person, and then that turned around everything, and they got their stock price up, and everything was fine, which blew my mind. Because there are so many companies and so many businesses that struggle so hard to get their story told, to get customers, all this stuff, and then the stock price just goes up. So like it kind of does, like, for one, you need a good story, and you need the credentials to back it up. But like you just need 1 or 2 people to amplify your story that have influence in the market. Like sometimes you don't need all the activities and the programs built up, and you just need like 1 or 2 voices of reason that people trust and are going to be like, oh, okay, well, that makes sense. We were totally wrong. This stock price is worth way more than we thought it was.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I also want to kind of juxtapose that against when they were fundraising and he was going meeting to meeting to meeting after, and his mother or father-in-law called him after, and his wife had like fainted and was in the
I think
hospital.
it was his father-in-law.
Yeah, and then he was like, the father-in-law was like, no, you need to stay out there, like go keep doing it. And he's like, oh my God, like retrospectively, he's like, I should have went back home, but he was so dialed in, like just grit, like your wife is in the hospital and you're on the road pitching investors and they don't even call you because they know that you just need to do that. Like it was insane. So, I mean, both sides, right? Like you get lucky sometimes and other times you just got to grind it out.
But he also had the family support for that, right? Like,
True.
it's not like he was just abandoning his family and going off on the road. Like, they didn't call him because that's where they wanted to focus. So his family was all on board, saying like, "Hey, we just don't want to distract you,"
Yeah.
but they were taking care of it. And like, I guess that's another interesting. It doesn't come up a ton in the book, but like you hear it through stories like that, like the little peaks. Like his really, really close support system, his family
Yeah.
had to have been totally understanding with like the stress he was going through, not eating, always on the road, making these tough decisions. Like he was consumed by the business, rightly so. When you're CEO and you're playing with other people's investors' money, you kind of have to be. But if you don't have that support, then you're basically fighting battles on two fronts. So like, yeah, it didn't come out a lot, but I would say that's probably must be a huge part of his success, being able to have that support as well.
No, that's true. Every successful person has a successful partner behind them.
So I think, yeah, those are a few of our favorite anecdotes. Overall, one of the best things I think I like about this book is the stories. It's not a dry textbook where you're getting do X, Y, Z. This is playbook 1, playbook 2, playbook 3. And so those are some of our favorite anecdotes. If you really want a summary and a breakdown of the whole book, I'm sure you can find one online or go read the book. It's worth your time. I think it's worth your time. Listen to the book, read the book, whatever floats your boat. But that's our summary of that. And so now we're going to move on to.
I would just say if you do listen to the audiobook, it's great because you have a rap song quote reference at the start of every single chapter because Ben Horowitz is very into hip hop and the rap scene and is very supportive of that community. And I'm pretty sure it's a very nerdy white guy who reads the audiobook and
Isn't
hearing
it him? Doesn't he read it?
no. He's too rich now. He wouldn't do his own book. But that's pretty funny, and the audiobook's worth the time. There is a middle section that's a little bit more HR-y and mechanics around that. So it can be dry depending on what situation you're in, but definitely worth the read. And now we want to get to fun stuff, just stuff that we're finding interesting out there.
I thought that was fun.
Yeah, yeah.
Different fun stuff?
Different fun stuff, other fun stuff. And the first one I wanted to bring up is I sent this to Steve like a week or two ago, and it was an ex post by this guy who is created this company called Pure Steel Co. And what he has created is a made in America stainless steel coffee machine. So everyone's worried about microplastics. You heard of where they are, all unfortunately in our bodies. And so his focus was, hey, like we're heating up water, putting it through this plastic coffee maker and drinking this every day. So he's building this made in America stainless steel coffee maker. And I was walking to work today and I'm carrying my blueberries and grapes in this glass container that weighs so much because I don't want to put plastic on it. And then I realized like every morning I'm blasting like boiling water through this coffee maker of mine. And I'm like, yeah, this is a no-brainer, except he's not charging enough.
One of the things I like most about it is just the utilitarian aspect of it. I didn't do a deep dive. I looked at what you sent me, and the design is really cool. It's simplistic, but then it's just a coffee maker.
Yeah.
Like I'm pretty sure it didn't have Wi-Fi functionality. It's not going to talk to you. It doesn't do 800 things. It's not making foam and steam and scanning barcodes. It's just straight up like you want a cup of coffee. This is going to make you a cup of coffee, and it looks really cool.
Yeah, and there's all this pressure in Europe to like, okay, no, it's the fixed stuff, whatever revolution. We can replace things, and this is like the keep it simple revolution. Like, just keep it simple. You don't need Wi-Fi on your coffee maker.
It's the opposite AI revolution.
Okay, next thing I want to cover is a opportunity cost that I missed in my life. So apparently, since like 1967, everyone's known that red light therapy helps balding men. And I thought this was BS the entire time. So I'm going through, scrolling, doom scrolling, and I see this ad with this guy who's like, "Oh, this is me right now," and then, or like 3 months ago, and now I have this like lion's mane head of hair, and I was like, "Okay, I know this is an ad, but consider me inspired. I'm gonna actually just take a
You
second."
looked at it.
And I just looked at not that ad. I looked at the medical research, and it took me like 2 seconds to realize it actually works. And people have known this for so long. It's just as effective as like topical methods with like prescriptions and stuff. And all you need to do is wear this stupid hat for like 6 to 30 minutes a day. And if you're just starting male pattern balding, it'll help. It'll help and revive your hair. I could have not have to wear a hat all the time, Steve.
How stupid is this hat?
It's pretty stupid. I mean, they have like ones that look like astronaut helmets, and then they have ones that look like baseball caps. But like, I mean, and they're expensive. They're like 1,000 to like whatever, $2,500. But I mean, gentlemen, if you're in business and you want your lion's mane of hair, like get one of these things.
Well, it won't reverse. Does this reverse? Like if you have no hair, is this bringing it back?
No,
Or is this,
if you're like me and you've waited too long because you thought this was foolish and a scam, it will not help you. But if you're just starting like male pattern baldness and you got some peach fuzz going, like put this thing on.
so the studies go back to 1967.
It started in 1967. I don't know when the studies,
Why is this not more well known?
because it looks like a scam. Like it looks like a weird commercial, right? Like I looked at it, I'm like, this is a scam. But yeah, just go on YouTube, search for the medical research and yeah, or Google, it's there.
So you could wear it while also hooked up to astronaut boots to the top of a door frame and make yourself taller and have a full head of hair.
Yeah, Steve, I missed all these. Thanks for pointing that out.
Love it.
Love it.
Love it.
Okay, do you want to do Yamanaka factors or robot vacuums?
Oh, I like the robot vacuum story. This is worth it.
Okay, so I was only aware of the Roomba, which is now actually gone bankrupt. Hey, so that's business link. But the robot vacuum space is actually like just rocketed forward. And we have now these amazing robot vacuums that right now, like you can get one for, I mean, they're expensive, but not crazy, that will mop your floor, vacuum your floor. When it goes over your rug, the mops pick themselves up so they don't get it wet. Then they'll go back to a dock. They'll bring in cold water for your mop. They'll wash your mops. They'll pull out the dirty water into a different receptacle. They'll suck out all the dust and everything from the vacuum. And I got this thing because I was like, okay, this is my coworker said this is going to be, really amazing. So I was like, okay, we'll try it. Buy it from Costco. And first 2 weeks go by, my wife's kind of like, it's all right. Third week, she's like, yeah, this is amazing. And I cannot remember the last time we touched our Dyson. You just like set this thing up with LiDAR. It maps out your entire like floor plan in like 10 minutes. I think that the one we got can hold like 4 floors, so it does all of them. And just watch the space coming up because now at CES this year, they had ones with these legs that could actually go upstairs and they can vacuum your stairs as they go up your stairs. They got ones with arms that come out and like pick up things that are on the ground and put them into place. Like it takes away one of your chores and saves you tons of time. And they're quiet. It's awesome.
That's wild. I even think for a lot of people that are into technology, just being able to like map your house is almost like a video game session.
Yeah.
And being able to play with it on the app would be a lot of fun. I still do things the old fashioned way, but I might look into this.
Love it. Stay tuned, everyone. Subscribe. Every algorithm now is interest based, so it doesn't matter if you subscribe. It's just going to show you what like other people have clicked in, but it makes us feel good. So thank you. And we'll be back later. That's the pod.